Hello, everybody. As promised, I'm providing a short video to just connect with you a little bit differently than the written word. And this subject is on Shabbat, teaching Shabbat, experiencing Shabbat, learning about Shabbat. And it's a rich subject and quite an important one because Shabbat, in terms of the calendar, is such a regular anchor uh, for all sorts of aspects of Jewish life, Jewish tradition, Jewish culture, Jewish customs, Jewish family, Jewish community. The list is endless. So I'm responding to the post so far, which I very much appreciate, and the citations that you've been giving, whether from Fogarty or some of the other sources, about the teaching part as well, and your own personal experiences. So one of the pieces that I am taking away is, first of all, when we discuss sort of the teaching about, my preference almost always when it comes to the word halacha or whatever other word you want to use translated into English, I tend to avoid saying the halacha and just refer more to halacha as as an ongoing, evolving way of life. So, because the tends to make things very rigid, I feel. So that's another piece. And also, even if we say the tradition, um, maybe there is some kind of the tradition, but truthfully, we have a lot of traditions that have been circulating over time and across space from various Jewish communities, or you might say edot, as well. And I think that that's important to keep in mind. Changes have happened in relation to Shabbat ever since the beginning, as you would see from the video by Professor Harris. And often in a traditional culture, the trick, if I were to use the word, I'm not using it in a in a foolish way, is to incorporate changes into tradition so that it stays vibrant without explicitly pushing that this is change. So it's a complicated balancing act or dance. The other thing is that there are plenty of ways to expose people, learners, to Shabbat that aren't necessarily experiential if you're not able to provide the experiential. And by the way, parenthetically, an experiential taste of Shabbat can also backfire depending on how it's prepared and executed in the group of people that you are doing it with. So, for example, there are plenty of stories, not only from Tanakh or Gemara, but also from the vast literature that we have, modern literature, contemporary literature, oral stories that have been passed down from generation to generation, poetry, music as a form of sort of experiencing or telling the story, art forms. I'm thinking of Chagall just popping into my head. And certainly we have many stories within Midrash, the Midrashic tradition, to also draw upon. Because one of the things here is that how do we teach without indoctrinating, and also without creating a sense of coerciveness or engendering guilt in our learners. And especially if you're working with younger people, the communication between the families, the parents, the adults needs to be part of what you're doing, because otherwise it can create a lot of inner turmoil. I can speak personally to that as a child, having gone to a modern Orthodox day school where there was at that time no idea of family education, and what I was taught was right or good um, was not happening in my home, and I felt ashamed, and it was really tough. So just wanted to share that with you. And then the other piece is that we're living in a countercultural society in terms of Shabbat, if we embrace it, because the majority society tells us that the busier you are, the less rest you get, the constantly being plugged in and available, the constant distraction, the constant focus on consumption, whether of goods or things like TV shows or news or Twitter feeds, that these are all kind of built in now and really promoted as goods. So Shabbat is saying, no, take a pause. So the no here is, what do I have to say, or what do we have to say no to in order to say yes to things that really matter? And so we have to figure out, what are those things that really matter? And then what are the things that we're going to need to say no to, not all the time, but in order to live into the yes. All right, I wish you a good week, and we will be in touch.